Hey, listeners, ready to transform your sleep? Cozy Earth is all about lasting luxury and comfort. Their bamboo sheets have been called the world's softest sheets, cooling, moisture wicking, and unbelievably soft. And I can tell you they get better with every wash. And they have a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty.
But it doesn't stop there. They have bath, sleepwear, loungewears, and even skincare. Free shipping on orders of $50 or more.
Make sure you go to cozyearth.com, use our code INFOGO at checkout to save 21% off. You can find all of this in the show notes. Welcome to the podcast. I'm William,
And I'm Kat,
and that makes this Info on the Go.
feeding your curiosity wherever you go.
So, Kat, have you seen all the conspiracy theories about the robot RAN that got lost beneath the Antarctic Ocean?
Now, I've heard of a lot of conspiracy theories involving Antarctica, but the robot beneath the ice is definitely one I had not heard yet.
Okay. Well, I think we're going to talk about what really happened to RAN, which is the lost robot beneath Antarctica. Anyway, I digress. Let's just dive into it. So imagine spending years building one of the most advanced robotic explorers ever created, and then sending it into a place so remote and so dangerous that once it disappears beneath the ice, you may never see it again.
Now, that isn't science fiction. It really happened. So, in early 2024, an autonomous underwater vehicle named RAN began its ambitious mission beneath Antarctica's Dotson Ice Shelf. Its job was to map the hidden underside of the ice, measure ocean temperatures and currents, and help scientists better understand how a warming climate is affecting one of the most important regions on Earth.
Unlike remotely operated robots, RAN was completely on its own. Once it slipped beneath the floating ice shelf, it lost all communication with the surface. There was no GPS, no radio contact, no human pilot, just onboard computers navigating through total darkness. The mission was a success until it was time to come back home.
And RAN never returned. He ran away if you ran away. Despite repeated searches, one of the most sophisticated underwater robots had vanished beneath Antarctica. Within days, the internet exploded with speculation. Some claimed RAN had discovered a mysterious structure beneath the ice. Others insisted it had found the remains of a lost civilization or even an alien base, and that scientists were hiding the truth. But what actually happened?
It was aliens.
It was.
So, did Rand discover something extraordinary before it disappeared? What did scientists really find beneath the ice shelf? And how did a remarkable scientific expedition become one of Antarctica's newest internet mysteries?
Now we're going to separate fact from fiction and explore the real story behind Rand's final mission, because the truth about what lies beneath Antarctica is every bit as fascinating as the myths. Before we can understand Rand's remarkable mission, we first need to understand the place it was sent to explore.
So, when most people picture Antarctica, they imagine an endless world of snow, ice, penguins, and, well, a few isolated research stations. While that's true, it it barely captures what Antarctica really is. In many ways, it's the Earth's last great frontier, a continent so vast and hostile that large portions, well, they still remain largely unexplored.
Antarctica is the fifth largest continent on Earth, covering nearly 5.5 million square miles, or about 14 million square kilometers. That's roughly 1.5 times the size of the United States. Unlike every other continent, it has no permanent cities, no native human population, and during the summer, about 5,000 scientists and support staff work at research stations scattered across the continent. In winter, that number falls to around 1,000. Under the Antarctic Treaty System, the continent is reserved for peaceful scientific research, with military activity and mineral mining prohibited.
Its importance goes far beyond its size. Antarctica, well, it contains about 90% of of the ice that is on Earth and roughly 70% of the planet's fresh water. And that's locked away in glaciers and ice sheets that have accumulated over hundreds of thousands or even millions of years. If all of that ice were to melt, global sea levels they would rise by approximately 190 feet. That would dramatically reshape coastlines around the world. And scientists don't expect that to happen anytime soon, but even relatively small losses of Antarctic ice, it can have enormous impacts on coastal communities.
The ice itself is almost beyond imagination. On average, it's more than a mile thick, and in some places reaches nearly 3 miles deep. Beneath that frozen blanket lies an entirely hidden world of mountain ranges, deep valleys, rivers, and hundreds of subglacial lakes that have remained isolated for hundreds of thousands and sometimes millions of years.
Oh, wow. There is a documentary of them going and drilling down in this ice and finding new bacteria and it's
New
it's
old
amazing.
bacteria.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. New old bacteria. So the environment isn't unforgiving as it is fascinating. Winter temperatures they drop sometimes below minus 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and the coldest temperatures ever recorded on Earth, minus 128.6 degrees. Well, that came from Antarctica's Vostok station in 1983. Machinery becomes brittle. Fuel, it thickens. Electronics struggle to function, and exposed skin, well, it can freeze in minutes.
Mm. Ironically, though, Antarctica is one of the world's largest deserts. Most areas receive only a few inches of snowfall each year. The ice persists not because of heavy snow, but because temperatures stay so cold, very little melting really occurs. Powerful katabatic winds rushing downhill from the continent's interior can exceed 200 miles per hour, creating blizzard conditions that make travel extremely dangerous. So, why study such a remote and inhospitable place?
Well, because Antarctica plays a critical role in the climate system. It acts like one of the planet's natural cooling systems, helping regulate global temperatures and influence weather and and inf- and influence weather patterns around the world. The cold water surrounding the continent, well, it also helps drive major ocean currents that will transport heat, oxygen, and nutrients across the globe.
One of the biggest concerns for scientists is understanding how warmer ocean water is affecting Antarctica's floating ice shelves. These shelves, including the Dotson Ice Shelf where RAND conducted its mission, already float on that ocean. So their melting contributes little directly to sea level rise, but they serve another even more important purpose. They act like giant natural braces, slowing the flow of enormous glaciers behind them. If an ice shelf weakens or collapses, those glaciers can accelerate into the ocean, adding far more land based ice to the sea and increasing global sea levels.
So Antarctica also preserves one of the greatest history books, right? Tiny bubbles trapped inside ancient ice contain samples of, well, the atmosphere from hundreds of thousands of years ago. By drilling deep ice cores, scientists can reconstruct past climates, measure ancient greenhouse gas levels, identify volcanic eruptions, and better understand how our planet has changed over time.
And despite decades of research, Antarctica remains one of the least explored places on Earth. In fact, scientists have produced more detailed maps of the moon and Mars than they have of many regions hidden beneath Antarctica's floating ice shelves. But that's because exploring beneath the ice is incredibly difficult.
Yeah, there is no sunlight beneath an ice shelf, only complete darkness. GPS, well, it can't penetrate the ice or seawater. So robotic explorers must navigate using sonar, inertial navigation systems, and onboard computers. Radio communication, it's just impossible. So, meaning once a vehicle disappears beneath the ice, scientists can no longer control it or even speak to it. The robot, Well, it must make its own decisions, avoid obstacles, conserve power, complete its mission, and somehow find its way back to the exact recovery point. So if something goes wrong, there's often nothing researchers can do but just wait it out.
That was the challenge facing RAN. It was designed to explore one of the most inaccessible environments on Earth, where no human could safely travel and where every mission carries the risk of never seeing the vehicle again.
We gotta kind of unpack this. Its name was RAM. It was one of the world's most advanced autonomous underwater vehicles. Unlike astronauts or deep sea divers, Rand didn't need air, food, or sleep. It kind of relied on sophisticated engineering, powerful computers, and advanced sensors to explore one of the most inaccessible places on Earth. What exactly is a AUV?
An autonomous underwater vehicle is essentially a robotic submarine that operates completely on its own. Before a mission begins, scientists program where it should go, how deep it should dive, what data it should collect, and when it should return. Once it leaves the surface, the robot makes its own decisions based on information from its onboard sensors and navigation systems.
And that's very different from a remotely operated vehicle or ROV. If you've seen footage of the Titanic or underwater oil rigs, you are probably watching an ROV at work. Those robots remain connected to a ship or by a long cable that really allows human operators to control every movement while receiving power and live video.
But beneath Antarctica's floating ice shelves, a tether would be a major problem. Thousands of feet of cable could easily snag on ridges or cracks in the ice overhead, trapping the robot. That's why scientists needed an autonomous vehicle instead.
So RAN, it carried everything it needed with it. It had its own batteries, computers, navigation system, scientific instruments. Once it disappeared beneath the ice, there was no joystick, no radio control, and no way to steer it around, those unexpected obstacles. In many ways, it operated more like a spacecraft exploring another planet than a traditional submarine.
The vehicle was named after Ran, the sea goddess from Norse mythology, an appropriate name for a machine designed to explore the ocean's hidden depths. Operated by researchers from the University of Gothenburg in Sweden, Ran measured about 20 feet long, weighed nearly 2 tons, and packed an extraordinary amount of technology into its streamlined body.
So it was named after Norse mythology.
A goddess, a sea goddess from Norse mythology.
Yeah, factoid.
Factoid.
So, one of its greatest challenges was navigation. As we talked about, GPS, well, it just can't travel through seawater. And it's just completely blocked beneath Antarctic ice. Instead, RAND relied on inertial navigation system, which continuously calculates its position by measuring every movement, turn, and acceleration. Whenever possible, it also used acoustic signals from instruments deployed near the research ship to improve its accuracy.
To see its surroundings, RAND depended primarily on sonar instead of cameras. By sending out sound waves and measuring their echoes, it created incredibly detailed maps of the seafloor and the underside of the ice shelf. It's much like the way bats use echolocation to navigate in complete darkness.
A better name for this thing would have been
What, the bat worm, because it's 20
the
feet
Bat
long.
Submarine.
Mm, the bat marine?
I'm sorry, that was probably bad. What?
I think we could do better.
Okay. So its multi-beam sonar produced three-dimensional maps detailed enough to reveal ridges, channels, terraces, subtle melting patterns that scientists had never observed before. While RAN also carried cameras, darkness beneath the ice, well, it's limited to what they could really capture, making sonar the most important tool aboard the vessel here.
Beyond mapping, RAN continuously measured water temperature, salinity, pressure, depth, dissolved oxygen, and ocean currents. These measurements help scientists understand how relatively warm seawater flows beneath the ice shelf and how even tiny temperature differences can accelerate melting. That information is essential for improving predictions of future sea level rise.
So, RAN wasn't an experimental prototype on its first mission. It had already completed numerous successful expeditions that mapped the seafloor and collected valuable data, some of the world's most challenging environments. Each mission will increase scientific confidence in its reliability, navigation system, and scientific instruments.
Even so, Antarctica is unlike anywhere else. Hidden ice formations, unpredictable currents, and the complete loss of communication mean that every mission carries significant risk. Once Rand disappeared beneath the ice, the research team could do little more than wait and hope it successfully completed its journey.
Few autonomous underwater vehicles anywhere in the world were capable of operating beneath Antarctica's floating ice shelves. RAN, well, it represented the cutting edge of underwater robotics, combining years of proven engineering with state-of-the-art technology. Everything suggested, well, it was ready for the most ambitious mission yet. But no one really expected what lay beneath the Dotson Ice Shelf. I say before we get into that, let's take our first break.
Sounds good.
I got to get a Coke.
Pepsi.
Ice cold Coke. You can have a hot Pepsi. We'll be right back.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
William, I know how you love matcha tea with coconut milk.
Yeah, it's clean energy without a crash.
Then you'll love Mantra Matcha. They offer super premium ceremonial matcha and 6 superfood infused flavors made from the finest, youngest tea leaves for a naturally sweet, ultra smooth taste.
With each flavor, it's infused with powerful superfoods like cacao, ginger, and goji berries. And they also have those classic favorites like banana cacao, strawberry lemon, cinnamon goji berry, plus superfood berry, ginger beet, and rosehip dragon fruit. It's organic, non GMO, gluten free with 0 grams of sugar. You can enjoy it like me, or maybe hot or in a smoothie like Cat. Every purchase helps provide meals to kids through No Kid Hungry.
It's at mantramatcha.com. Get 15% off using our code INFOGO at checkout. Both links are in the show notes.
Hey, everybody, we want to tell you about strong coffee. Every morning it starts with a choice. You can settle for just coffee, or you can rise up with strong coffee. And it's the world's strongest cup of joe. Strong isn't just a drink, it's a movement. It stands for striving to reach our natural greatness.
It's born from one simple need: to be better. They rebuilt coffee from the ground up, infusing organic coffee with collagen, protein, nootropics, and functional ingredients that fuel your body and sharpen your mind. No crash, no compromises, just clean energy, focus, and flavor that fires you up.
Yeah, so whether you're chasing kids, chasing goals, or chasing greatness, don't just do it with coffee, do it with strong coffee. And our listeners can save 20% off just by using our code INFOGO at checkout. Hey, if you're looking for your favorite band or sports team or TV show, check out Old Glory. They've been in operation since 1969 and they have over 300,000 items. They have from the Beatles all the way to Metallica, NFL, NBA. It really doesn't matter what you're looking for. They have tees, hoodies, hats, gifts, everything a true fan could ever want. And it's family owned and operated. They have fast shipping, free standard delivery on every order. And you know what? Our listeners get a 15% off at checkout using our code INFOGO. You can find the link in the show notes.
Now that we're back, I got myself a nice cold Pepsi. Thank you. With years of successful missions behind it, RAN was chosen for one of the most ambitious Antarctic expeditions ever attempted. Its destination was the Dotson Ice Shelf, a remote region of West Antarctica along the Amundsen Sea, one of the fastest changing parts of the continent. From space, Dotson doesn't look particularly remarkable. It appears as a vast, flat sheet of white ice stretching into the horizon. But the real story isn't on the surface, it's what's underneath. Don't
Yeah,
judge a book by its cover, okay?
yeah, never judge a book by its cover. So the Dotson Ice Shelf is a massive slab of floating ice connected to glaciers on land. Beneath it lies a huge hidden cavity filled with seawater, a place almost impossible for humans to explore. It's completely dark, cut off from GPS, and nearly impossible to communicate once the vehicle disappears into the ice. But scientists were especially interested in Dotson because satellite observations showed it was thinning faster than expected. But satellites can only see the surface. So, to understand why the ice was melting, researchers needed to examine what was going on beneath it. And the biggest suspect was relatively warm ocean water.
What may sound strange in Antarctica, but warm in relative term, the water flowing beneath the ice shelf is still only a few degrees above freezing. Even so, water just 1 or 2 degrees warmer than the surrounding ocean carries enough heat to slowly melt ice from below. And over years and decades, that hidden melting can remove enormous amounts of ice. Researchers had already discovered that circumpolar deep water was flowing beneath several Antarctic ice shelves, including Dotson, carrying heat from the ocean up into these hidden cavities.
So, this matters because floating ice shelves act like giant natural braces. While they don't contribute much directly to sea level rise when they melt, they hold back the massive glaciers behind them. If an ice shelf weakens or collapses, those glaciers, well, they can speed up, sending more land based ice into the ocean, which will raise global sea levels. So, the goal of RAND's mission was to better understand that hidden process. Its first task was to create the most detailed map ever made of the underside of the Dotson Ice Shelf. Every mile it traveled would reveal terrain that no one had ever seen before.
At the same time, RAN would measure water temperature, salinity, pressure, dissolved oxygen, and ocean currents. Even tiny differences in temperature and water movement can dramatically affect how quickly the ice melts. Those measurements would improve computer models used to predict Antarctica's future and the pace of sea level rise. And after months of planning, launch day finally arrived. On the deck of the research ship, engineers carefully checked every system. Batteries were fully charged, navigation software fully loaded, and scientific instruments were tested one last time. Then Rand was lowered into the icy waters of the Amundsen Sea.
For a brief moment, it floated beside the ship. Then, as motors engaged, slowly the robotic explorer headed toward the edge of the floating ice shelf. Ahead was a wall of ice stretching for hundreds of miles. Moments later, Rand slipped beneath the ice and disappeared into, well, complete darkness. And from that point on, the scientists could no longer see it. They couldn't communicate with it or guide it around obstacles. Everything really depended on the robot's own computers, sensors, and navigation systems. So, deep beneath the ice, Rand continued exactly as planned, using sonar instead of sight. It mapped the hidden underside of the ice shelf while recording thousands of measurements of temperature, salinity, and ocean currents. Every mile carried, well, it carried it into territory that had never appeared on a map.
As Rand traveled beneath the Dotson Ice Shelf, it accomplished something no human ever could. In complete darkness, it revealed a hidden world that had never been seen before. Before the mission, scientists believed the underside of Antarctic ice shelves was relatively smooth, with gentle variations caused by melting. They expected an uneven surface, but nothing extraordinary. And Rand, well, proved them wrong.
Okay. Its sonar mapped a surprisingly rugged landscape filled with enormous terraces, deep channels, towering ridges, and intricate patterns carved into the ice. Instead of a flat ceiling, the underside of the ice shelf looked more like a upside down mountain range. One of the biggest surprises was a series of giant terraces, massive, steep like formations, some dozens of feet high and stretching for hundreds of yards. These weren't created all at once, but they were formed over many years as different parts of the ice melted in different rates.
Rand also discovered deep channels beneath the ice that acted like underwater rivers, guiding relatively warm seawater through the hidden cavity. These channels carried heat into areas scientists hadn't realized were especially vulnerable to melting. The vehicle mapped long ridges hanging down from the ice shelf that redirected ocean currents, forcing water to twist, turn, and swirl instead of flowing evenly beneath the ice. The currents followed complex paths, creating hotspots where melting occurred much faster than expected.
The textures of the ice were equally revealing. Some areas were remarkably smooth, while others were rough and deeply grooved. These patterns showed that several different melting processes were happening at the same time. Some regions experienced slow, steady melting, while others were shaped by turbulent water or repeated cycles of melting and refreezing. The obvious question was, what created all of this? The answer was the movement of warm ocean water.
Although the water beneath Antarctica is still only a few degrees above freezing, it contains enough heat to slowly erode the ice over years and decades, like rivers carving canyons on land. Ocean currents sculpt the ice from below. As the water flows around ridges and through channels, it speeds up, slows down, and forms swirling eddies that concentrate heat in some places while leaving others relatively untouched. One of Rand's most important discoveries was that these turbulent currents could trap warm water against the ice longer than scientists expected. Those small pockets experienced much faster melting, helping explain why satellite observations showed some parts of Antarctic ice shelves thinning rapidly while nearby areas changed very little.
In other words, the shape of the ice affected how the water flowed, and the flowing water continuously reshaped the ice. It was a continuous feedback loop that many climate models hadn't really fully captured. That finding was a major scientific breakthrough. It showed researchers that the underside of these ice shelves, well, they are far more complex than previously believed, meaning future climate models would need to account for these hidden landscapes and their influence on ocean circulation. So the discoveries will also have real world importance.
Floating ice shelves don't directly raise sea levels when they melt because they are already floating, but they act like giant supports that slow the glaciers behind them. As an ice shelf weakens, those glaciers can flow into the ocean more quickly, contributing directly to global sea level rise. By identifying where melting is happening fastest, scientists can better predict which ice shelves are most vulnerable and improve forecasts for future sea level rise.
So, by this point in the expedition, the mood among the research team was one of cautious optimism. Rand had successfully completed previous missions beneath the Dotson Ice Shelf, and the data it was collecting during these expeditions appeared to be just as remarkable. The vehicle had ventured further into one of Earth's least explored environments than almost any robotic explorer before it. It mapped landscapes and collected measurements that scientists knew would improve their understanding of Antarctica for years to come. So the mission seemed to be unfolding exactly as planned. But as we know, nothing ever goes as planned, does it?
Every autonomous underwater vehicle follows a carefully programmed sequence of events. Engineers spend months designing the mission, determining where the vehicle should travel, how deep it should dive, what measurements it should collect, and how much battery power each part of the journey is expected to require. Once the mission begins, the robot executes that plan on its own, making countless small adjustments as it navigates through the underwater environment. Eventually, after completing its survey, the robot is programmed to return to a predetermined recovery point. There, it surfaces so the research team can locate it, retrieve it, download its data, recharge its batteries, and prepare it for its next mission. Now, that was exactly what everyone expected Rand to do.
As the scheduled recovery time approached, the scientists and engineers, well, they gathered on deck. They knew approximately when the vehicle should return. They had gone through this process many times before, although every recovery carries a degree of uncertainty. Rand had earned a reputation of reliability. The minutes passed, the expected time came and went. There was no sign of the robot. At first, no one really panicked. Delays can happen, when you're doing these underwater missions. Ocean conditions can change, currents can slow the vehicle's progress. Some of the systems, they can slightly have different routes than originally planned. A delay of several minutes or even longer, it just becomes necessarily doesn't mean it, should raise alarm bells, right?
Right. The team continued to wait, still nothing. As more time passed, concern began to replace confidence. The scientists attempted to establish acoustic communication with the vehicle. Unlike a cell phone call or a radio, underwater communication relies primarily on sound waves. Acoustic signals can travel through water much better than radio waves, but they have limited range and can be affected by the surrounding environment. The team sent signal after signal. They listened carefully for a response. Silence. Perhaps the vehicle had not yet reached the communication range. Perhaps it's still making its way back beneath the ice.
Or it could just be delayed.
But the waiting continued.
Yeah, I mean, hours passed. Eventually, it became clear that something was seriously wrong.
The research vessels searched the surrounding waters, hoping the robot had surfaced somewhere outside the planned recovery area. Scientists reviewed mission data, checked navigation logs, and considered every possible explanation they could think of.
But Rand never appeared. There was no emergency transmission, no acoustic response, no floating debris, no indication of where the vehicle had gone. It had simply vanished. And for the research team, that loss was devastating.
Although news headlines often focused on the robot's estimated value of around $3 million, its true worth went far beyond its price tag. RAND represented years of engineering, testing, and scientific collaboration. Teams of mechanical engineers had designed its pressure resistant hull.
Electrical engineers had developed the system that had powered its instruments. Software specialists had written the navigation algorithms that really allowed it to travel independently through one of the most difficult environments on Earth. Oceanographers had carefully selected the scientific instruments needed to answer those detailed questions that they really wanted. Every successful mission had, well, it contributed to improving the vehicle's capabilities. Thousands of work hours from dozens of researchers were, well, it was embodied in a single robotic explorer.
Losing it meant losing not only an incredibly valuable scientific instrument, but also the opportunity to use it for future discoveries. Preparing for an Antarctic expedition in itself is an enormous undertaking. Research vessels must be scheduled years in advance. Funding must be secured through competitive scientific grants. Equipment is shaped across the world, and scientists spend months planning survey routes, testing instruments, and preparing for every foreseeable challenge.
Kat, I said before we get into the highly sophisticated navigation system, let's take a small break.
Sounds good to me.
So now that we're back,
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A map to search your mind, the galaxies you'll find. The Mind Atlas.
Search the Mind Atlas on your bookstore for your public domain anthology and build the end of scarcity.
even with highly sophisticated navigation systems, small errors, well, they can accumulate over time. If the robot's estimated position gradually drifted from, well, its actual location, It might have missed its planned exit route beneath the ice shelf. A mistake of only a small distance early in the mission, well, it could eventually become much larger after traveling many miles underwater. And another possibility is mechanical failure.
Like any complex machine, RAN contained thousands of individual components: a failed motor, damaged propeller, malfunctioning control surface, or another mechanical problem that could have prevented the vehicle from completing its mission. A battery failure is also possible.
Although engineers carefully calculate power requirements before every mission, unexpected conditions, such as stronger than anticipated currents or extended maneuvering around obstacles, that could increase energy consumption. If the batteries become depleted before the robot reached its recovery point, the vehicle, well, it would just stop operating beneath the ice. And some experts have also suggested the possibility of a software malfunction because software never goes wrong. It's perfect.
It never short circuits or gets corrupted data or anything like that.
Yeah. What was that movie, Short Circuit? Was that the movie?
Yes.
Okay.
Modern autonomous vehicles rely on millions of lines of computer code despite extensive testing. Unexpected combinations of circumstances can sometimes produce errors that were never encountered during simulations or previous missions. Ocean currents present another challenge.
The water beneath Antarctica's ice shelves, they are far from calm. Hidden currents can change speed and direction unexpectedly. If Rand encountered stronger currents than anticipated, it may have been pushed off of its planned route or forced to use additional battery power while trying to compensate. Another possibility involves the ice itself.
Although ice shelves appear solid from above, they're constantly changing. Large blocks of ice can crack, shift, or collapse without warning. If a section of ice broke away or an unexpected obstacle developed along the vehicle's route, RAN may have become trapped or damaged. A collision is also considered possible.
Despite its sophisticated sonar systems, the hidden world beneath an ice shelf contains ridges, overhangs, narrow passages, and irregular formations that can extremely make it difficult to navigate. An impact with submerged ice or some other obstacle could have disabled the vehicle before it ever had a chance to return. Could there have been some entirely different cause that no one has really considered?
Absolutely. The simple truth, though, is that we just don't know, because RAN has never been recovered. Every explanation remains a hypothesis rather than a confirmed conclusion. It was aliens.
That's my line.
But that uncertainty has fueled endless speculation online.
For scientists, however, Pepsi had a navy, so they think Pepsi had something to do with it.
Yes, yes. No, we're just kidding.
However, uncertainty is simply part of the scientific process. When evidence is unavailable, responsible researchers avoid drawing conclusions that, well, they just can't support. One thing is certain, though. Although Rand never returned, the data that it sent back, it transformed how we look at Antarctica and how we understand it. And it's really transformed how researchers continue. In Rand's final mission, it would be remembered not only for groundbreaking scientific accomplishments, but for the unanswered questions surrounding its disappearance. And those unanswered questions, well, they would soon take on a life of their own far beyond the world of scientific research. It was Pepsi's Navy or
And as
aliens.
as the internet enters the chat and people and their endless theories, let's just dive in.
Let's do it.
The story of the underwater robot could have remained an interesting scientific footnote, but once it reached the internet, it took on a life of its own. Early news reports accurately described the discovery as unusual natural formations on the seafloor, something worth studying, but not necessarily mysterious. But as the story spread from one website to another, the language slowly changed, the game of telephone.
Hmm.
An unknown natural formation became an unknown structure. Soon that evolved into a hidden building. And long before, countless videos and articles were confidently declaring that an underwater robot had discovered an alien base or the remains of Atlantis. None of those dramatic claims came from the scientists themselves. They grew through repetition, exaggeration, and the internet's endless appetite for mystery.
Sensationalized journalism at its best.
Yeah.
So this information, this information, this transformation is a perfect example of how clickbait works, right? Because online platforms reward headlines that grab attention, even if they stretch the truth. A headline that says, scientists study strange rock formations is, well, it just really doesn't sound, grabbing, right? But if you said robot finds impossible structure underneath the ocean, well, that's going to grab your attention. And once enough people click, share, comment, react, algorithms on YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, and any of those other social media platforms, well, they begin recommending the story to even more users. And the cycle feeds itself. Each new creator tries to make the story a little more exciting than the last, often using some kind of music to make it stand out, glowing graphics, arrows pointing at a blurry image, or sensationalized thumbnails featuring giant red circles and question marks. And before long, speculation, it starts to feel like established fact. Aliens.
Indeed.
Aliens were driving. Oh, I got it. I've got it. I've got the perfect one. Aliens were driving. Aliens took over Pepsi's Navy, right? And they took out the submarine because they didn't want them to find the secret base.
They didn't want him to find Atlantis, and it was still alive and thriving.
And they were drinking lots of Coke.
Sure, sure. You know, conspiracy websites often add another layer by suggesting that governments or scientists are deliberately hiding the truth. Rather than, that's to be fair, we've had to force the government to reveal more truths in later years about events that happened 50 plus years ago.
Mm.
So that may not altogether be wrong, but in any case, I digress.
So, really, what aren't they telling us, right?
That's kind of the question. That's a reoccurring theme throughout history. What does the government not want you to know?
But why are so many people drawn to stories like this? And the answer lies in human psychology, because our brains are naturally wired to explore mysteries and search for patterns throughout history. Recognizing unusual patterns helped, well, our ancestors survive. So we're quick to connect the dots, even when those connections aren't real. All right.
Well, we also fear the unknown. An unexplained object beneath miles of ocean sparks our imagination far more than another ordinary geological formation. Confirmation bias plays a role as well. Once someone believes that governments hide evidence of ancient civilizations or extraterrestrial life, they're more likely to accept information that supports the belief while dismissing anything that contradicts it. I'm not saying it's Atlantis. What I am saying is that they probably are not telling us everything, but I don't know what they're not wanting us to know, you know?
It's the Swedes. They tell us everything. The ocean itself makes these stories even more irresistible. More than 80% of the Earth's oceans, well, they remain largely unexplored, leaving plenty of room for imagination to fill the gaps. And that combination of mystery, limited knowledge, and, sensationalized storytelling, well, that creates the perfect environment for internet legends to thrive. And Kat, I say, let's do fact versus fiction.
Indeed. Let's see what we do know for a fact.
I guess here's what we can do. I'll do the claim, you do the verdict.
Sounds good.
All right. The robot discovered an alien base beneath the ocean that was using Pepsi's Navy to take over the world.
False. There is absolutely no scientific evidence that the robot encountered anything related to extraterrestrials. This claim exists entirely in online speculation.
Okay. The robot found artificial buildings or ruins of ancient civilizations.
It was Atlantis. But anyway, False, also. While some rock formations can appear surprisingly geometric, scientists found no evidence that these features were constructed by humans or any other intelligent beings. Natural geological processes are fully capable of producing formations that look remarkably symmetrical. You should look up what bismuth looks like in its natural crystallized state and something else. It's not pyrite, but it's close to pyrite in the same family. Anyway, they
Okay.
make squares.
Here's the best one. Scientists, they're hiding the truth. They they know what they discovered, and they're trying to keep that technology for themselves.
Per usual, there is no evidence to support this claim. Ocean research is routinely published, reviewed by other scientists, and discussed openly. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, but none has been presented yet.
Okay. So the underwater robot just disappeared.
True, but the vehicle was ultimately lost during its mission. Deep sea exploration is incredibly difficult for humans and robots alike. I mean, you also have to account for the weight of the water pressure.
Yeah. And then those shifting currents that we talked about.
Indeed.
Um, so the robot mapped areas of the ocean floor that had never been seen before.
Absolutely true. I mean, is somebody else going to try to swim down there in that freezing, frigid darkness of water? Probably not.
Have you ever heard of the Polar Bear Club?
No, but that sounds like fun.
Oh, we got okay. Add it to the shopping list. We'll do one on the Polar Bear Club.
But one of the primary goals of these missions is to explore places no human has ever observed directly. Every successful dive expands our understanding of Earth's least explored frontier.
Okay. How about this one? Scientists learned valuable information from this mission.
Also true. Even when equipment is lost, the data transmission before the incident can provide important insights into geology, biology, chemistry, and the complex processes shaping the deep ocean.
I think the biggest lesson of this story, reality doesn't always need aliens, secret bases, Pepsi's Navy, or hidden civilizations to be fascinating. The deep ocean remains one of the last great frontiers on Earth. It's a place filled with strange creatures, dramatic landscapes, hydrothermal vents, underwater volcanoes, geological formations unlike anything found on land. I mean, the Mariana Trench, right?
Indeed.
The real discoveries they're being made beneath the waves. They're extraordinary because they're real. Sometimes the truth is every bit as amazing as, well, the myths that kind of circulate around them.
Now, think about this. Less of Earth's oceans have been explored in detail than the surface of the moon. Entire underwater landscapes remain unseen. New species continue to be discovered every year. Robotic explorers like Ran are giving humanity its very first glimpse beneath Antarctica's floating ice. Although Ran never came home, its final mission changed what scientists know about how Antarctica is melting, and that knowledge will improve models used to predict future sea level rise. The mystery isn't an alien civilization. Maybe not. But it's our own planet still contains vast unexplored frontiers just waiting to be discovered. So we don't know everything, folks.
No, we really don't. But if you would like to support this podcast, tell a friend and help get the word out. If you have a theory on what happened to Rand, put it on our Facebook page, put it in our fan mail, leave us a review. We would love to hear what you think.
And we'd read it. We could read it on air or something, you know?
Yeah, just tell us you want us to read it on air.
Yeah, for sure. If you want to be if you would like to remain anonymous, of course we can accommodate that too.
Yeah. And if you think it was aliens with Pepsi's Navy, by all means, I'm with you.
Same. We're all there. They discovered Atlantis and they all drink Coke.
Yeah, there you go. They were having the Pepsi vessels drinking Coke, and that's what happened. That's what happened. They were drinking Coke, driving a Pepsi vehicle, and there was a vortex, and it just sucked them in.
A black hole under the ocean, if you will. So, anyway, all jokes aside, if you would like to support this podcast, tell a friend and help get the word out.
If you would like to support the show, you can do so at Patreon or take advantage of our sponsors. Those links are in the show notes. And for a limited time, Kat and I have released our entire Patreon catalog free. Go check it out.
As always, William and I want to thank you for listening.
Whether you've been with us from day one or just tuning in, thank you.
Join the Facebook group at Info on the Go.
Over there, you can get to know us.
Or ask us a question.
But whatever you do, make sure you hit that follow button wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Send us some fan mail using the link in the show notes or leave a review.
Leaving that review really does help others find us. But you can email Kat or myself directly at
infoonthegopodcast@gmail.com.
And the best thing about it is all of this is in the show notes. You don't have to remember a thing. Just simply click. Till next time.
Stay curious.
Hey, listen up. All of my workforce friends out there, whether you're ranchers, farmers, or you just need a pair of good leather gloves, look no further than Bare Knuckles, the best leather gloves ever made, featuring a patent design crafted for natural curve of the fingers. These gloves deliver a perfect fit, superior protection, and all-day comfort. Made from premium leather, right now get an exclusive 15% off, and you can find that at buybareknuckles.com, but make sure you use our code INFOGO at checkout. You can find that link in the show notes. Upgrade your hands, and remember, every purchase, well, it supports the show, so thank you.
If you love unforgettable treats, you've got to try Molly B's Gourmet Cookies. These aren't your average cookies. Molly B's brings bold, artisan crafted cookies straight to your pantry. We're talking chocolate, cherry, and amaretto and be cordial. Earl Grey, lavender, white chocolate, and lemon glaze in the tea. Even maple, bacon, whiskey, and white chocolate in the Boss Man. Founded by a single mom from Alaska, Molly Bees has become a national sensation. You get 10% off any product using our code INFOGO at mollybees.com. Find the link in the show notes.